Good morning. My name is Steve, and I'm here, and what we're going to be discussing today is changing a tire. And it's one of the things that I hope you never have to do. And there's two conditions under which you might have to do it. Very, very favorable way, which maybe you had a flat tire directly in your driveway, which is what I'm going to do, or you have a flat tire in front of a service station. The other one would be the undesirable way, and that would be alongside of a road somewhere that you've pulled off after having got a flat tire and your cell phone has no service. So under those conditions, you're going to have to rely upon what you have with you. And you're going to be looking at your owner's manual for guidance, and I'll show you pictures of that later. But anyway, the deal that we're going to do today is we're going to change this tire. We're going to assume that this tire right here is flat. And you would be able to tell that by the fact that the bottom part of the tire was very, very thin, so that you could see that it was no longer fully inflated like you see it now. Okay, what I've done is I've moved to the back of the car because this is the area where we're going to go, and we're going to do the essential stuff first. We already know that we've got a flat tire. We've got our car pulled off the side of the road as far as can be on as stable and flat ground as possible. Now what we're going to do is go to the back of the car, and we're going to get all of the things that we need to do and assemble them at the location of the tire to be changed. And every car, it's just a little bit different, but I'm going to go over what I have in my car, which is I can see in my user's manual or owner's manual where it's located at, but you have to be able to find it. And generally speaking, that is accessed from in the back of your car underneath the rear cover area or storage area. And you'll see that I'm taking these parts out. Now the next thing we do is we take out the tools that have been provided for us. And as you can see here, they're comprised of three separate parts, four altogether. One is the jack itself. It's called a scissors jack. And I'll demonstrate how that's used in a moment. This tool and this tool and this tool are all used with or around the scissors jack to have access to take the lug bolts off the tires, and also to get the hubcap that's on your tire. If you have one that's not directly bolted on, you can use these things for that purpose. Now, when you look in my car, there's no spare tire, apparently. This car has a way of storing the tire that's a little bit different than most cars. Most cars, you'd find your spare tire right here. But in this car, what we've got is we have a spare tire that's actually located under the car, and it's hung in a cage from the bottom of the car. So one of the tools in the toolkit we got was a funny looking extension like this. And what it is, it's got a place for this goes onto a nut, which is in here, which will release and lower the tire cage down so that we can access the spare tire. And then this part is going to be attached to one of the tools that we're going to use, just as if it were a lug bolt. So I put that on here. The next thing I would do is I would get the tool that I'm going to use like this to take off my lug bolts, but it's also used to lower the tire to the ground and the cage. Now, in the book, it says that we lower this down 20 turns. What we want to do is get it down low enough. So we're going to put this on here, and we're going to start turning it in a circle like this. And it's always, for most part, it's lefty loosey, righty tighty. So what I want to do is loosen this so that it goes down. So I'm going to the left, and I'm going to keep doing that. And you may or may not be able to see the tire coming down. Catch here, and what it does is it lowers the tire in a cage down to the ground. And then I'll be able to pull the spare tire out. Now, this spare tire hasn't been used on this car ever, which is hopefully the way it is for you and your car. Basically, it's got four places for bolt holes, which will go on our wheel. One of the things I want to point out real quickly is notice the width of this tire. This tire is significantly more narrow than the tires on the back of the car. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because when you do get this on here, your car, when it's driving on the spare tire, is going to have different driving characteristics. It means it'll be less stable. So what you need to do is to make sure you drive accordingly. The limits on the tire, once it's put on, the first thing you should do is go to a service station and get the tire fixed and then placed back on your car. don't go over 50 miles an hour. It's maximum speed for these. Okay, I've relocated myself to where the tire is. I've relocated all the pieces of equipment that I found in the back, including the tire itself, the spare tire itself. I've located it over here because I want all of this available to me before I put the car in an unsafe condition by jacking it up off the ground. So the first thing that we do in my car, and this is not in every car, but in some cars, this silver thing on here is basically a hubcap. And in this particular case, this hubcap is placed on here, and our job is to get it off and then store it out of the way. And what that does is you'll notice that it gives us a similar look to this tire here with bolts that are attached to lugs, which are attached to the wheel, 4 of them, and there are 4 here as well. Before we jack the car up off the ground, the first thing that we're going to want to do is we're going to loosen these lug bolts here. All right, and that is something that has to be done while the wheel's still on the ground. And the reason for that is we're going to be applying a rotating torque to the wheel, and if we have it up, it'll spin on us. So one of the things that I do is I put it on there, and then I open the door. I loosen it just so it's loose. Okay, now at this point, the lug bolts are loosened. The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to place my scissors jack underneath the car, and I'll bring this a little closer. You can see there's a slot in here. This slot is going to be placed under the car in a groove that actually will accept this. And what you're going to do is you're going to tighten. Remember I said lefty loosey, righty tighty? What we're going to do is we're going to raise our scissors jack up by spinning it free like this. Now I'm going to raise it up so that I can get it underneath the car, but I have to do minimal amount of, there will be a groove right here that's close to the back tire. There'll be another groove up there in the front, which would be for changing the front tire. So we place our jack underneath, and we turn the screw on the jack, and you'll see it coming up. And what we're going to do is we're going to position it. And the reason we want to do that is because once we engage the jack, we're going to want to make sure that it basically pushes straight up. We don't want the thing off at an angle. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this. It's got a little hook on the end of it. And what we're going to do is we're going to use that, and we're going to use our thing that we loosened our lug wrench or lug bolts with, and we're going to place that on here. And then we're going to turn it. What we're doing is we're bringing the car. You'll notice that the car is starting to rise. And the reason for that is that the jack it's a scissors jack, so as the scissor pulls together, it forces the car up. And what we want to do is continue this, keeping in mind at any moment that something could go wrong. So we are always looking for safety. What I want to do is I want to get it high enough so that the rear tire is off the ground. And I don't want to bring it up too high, because if it's higher, then it's less stable. You can see that I can easily pass this under here so the tire is no longer on the ground. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to take these pre-loosened lug bolts and we're going to take them off. Usually if they're reasonably not dirty, they'll spin off quite easily. And I want to put them all together so that I don't lose them, because I'm going to need them when I put the spare tire on. And then I take my flattened tire off and I move it out of the way. The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up the spare tire and I'm going to align it with these 4 lugs here. And we're going to reuse those lug bolts to tighten the tire on. One of the things that you'll notice is that there's obviously an inside and an outside. So this obviously goes on the outside. So what I do is I position it so that those lugs fit through, much like what was on there before. And you may have to hold it in while you do this, but then take one of these lug bolts and screw it on and tighten it finger tight. And I'm going to go around and I'm going to tighten these and just keep pushing on the tire so that it pushes the wheel into the wheel holder. And I'm going to keep tightening these as I do it. Now that I've got the wheel on, all 4 lug bolts are finger tight. I'm going to again use this lug wrench, and I'm going to use it to tighten these up as tight as I can get them. And remember, the wheel's going to have a tendency to spin. But I do want to get them as tight as I possibly can. And I'm going to use this, what I call a star pattern. All right, that's tight. Okay, now my wheel is on. The lug bolts are pretty tight. They're not as tight as they're going to be when I get done. My next action is to lower the tire and car down so that the tire makes contact with the ground. And then I'm going to go through a tightening procedure again. This time we're going to turn it to the left because lefty-loosey, righty-tighty. Remember, what I'm doing now is I am lowering the scissors jack. And I don't know if you can see it, but what's happening is the wheel is heading towards the ground. But the tire is now firmly down on the ground. Then I'm going to go around these lug bolts one more time, and I'm going to tighten them using this crossing pattern. And then what I'll do is finish lowering the jack. You're going to lefty-loosey, righty-tighty. And what we're going to do is put all the pressure on the tire. And then we're going to take the jack out and spin it back down. The last thing that you would do would be to take your car to a local service station and make sure that you have that tire's lug bolts tightened on at the correct amount. They will have air-driven wrenches that are calibrated to put the right torque on the wheel, on the lug nuts. So make sure you do that as the last thing, just to make sure that the tire is firmly attached to the car, and then have them inspected.
Blowing the most, but I